Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and I score them based on the store page. Today we are continuing our dive into Sports Month, but because it is Super Bowl Sunday at the time of this episode release, instead of the Olympics, we are pivoting over to EA Sports Madden NFL 26. This is the most current and recent game of the NFL series released in August of 2025. Uh, Weird that, about halfway into 2025 is when the 26th game releases, but whatever. I am no expert on sports ball or their seasons and all that. I just blanket. I just know we got the Super Bowl coming up, and that's why we're looking at this one. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, sports games are easily the genre I have the least amount of experience with. So, keeping that in mind, a reminder this judgment is about the store page as it is presented to us on Steam. I believe it is also available on Xbox and PlayStation. Um, but it remains to be seen, how we're going to go about that and how we're looking at that. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into part one of our review when it comes to the trailers. Now, we have four whole trailers to start our rating with. The first of which, okay, clearly not a gameplay emphasized trailer. If anything, it looks like they just pulled some general football hype music with, strangely enough, live football clips like real players showboating for the camera. Over 30 seconds of video, I counted what appeared to be about 5 seconds worth of actual game footage, and it didn't even appear to be gameplay, just a flash in the pan of comparing game renders to real video. The second trailer also shows minimal gameplay, only by means of the camera pointing at the screen. It is clearly a made for TV commercial, but I guess it at least does that job well. It is exactly the kind of advertisement I would expect to see between plays watching sports, though nowhere near Super Bowl caliber of advertising creativity, or the kind of ad that I would hit the skip button after 5 seconds on YouTube. And with that, it's not until the third trailer that we actually get some information and visuals about the game itself, with actual gameplay footage you would expect to see. Our narrator tells us about what is different in the game, something that I think any longtime fan of sports games is going to be asking, among the common criticism of each game functionally being little more than an update to last year's release. Don't worry, I'm not scoring the game based on that metric. I am going to score on the store page right in front of me. We are told that the game uses an AI adaptation for player and coach behaviors, quarterback signature plays, and in order to keep gameplay fresh and I suppose lore accurate. Okay, now I know in our modern era, AI tends to be a pretty ugly word, but it does at least appear to be presented in a way that is not using generative AI, referring instead to the kind of adaptive artificial intelligence that video games have been working with for ages, drawing on NPC and opponent behaviors from real NFL statistics. At least that's what the trailer sounds like it's trying to promote. Honestly, what they are boasting with their DNA system does sound legitimately impressive, with a strong emphasis on making players and coaches play the way that they do in the real world, since the teams and characters are all based on IRL parallels. I will admit, as a run of the mill casual gamer myself, that means very little to me personally, but it is clearly a system and a design that is meant to appeal to fans of real world sports. And seeing the emphasis on keeping game characters as lore accurate as possible is legitimately impressive, I think. The trailer also boasts more real world conditions like adverse weather and how it affects the field, the players, right down to the ball handling. So there is quite a bit to highlight on that. At least to check out the trailer. It's a nice little about 4 to 5 minutes. 4 minutes 15 seconds of actual gameplay showcase that already puts it above the other two trailers. And frankly, if they would have led the store page with this, I think I would have liked that better, as opposed to leading with, what looks like TV advertisements where they try to cram that little 30-second snippet in between your favorite TV show. Our final trailer, almost 5 minutes long, is a discussion of a franchise legacy, which sounds like a whole gameplay mode that they target in here, where you define your coach's playstyle across a kind of season campaign gameplay mode, complete with almost RPG like ability upgrades and unlocks. The game's computer opponents are also boasted to adapt to your changes and strategies, uh, where there's a huge emphasis of things going on in between games, like in between actual games of football. There is a highlight of playbook management and player development that focuses on the training of individual players, complete with physical condition, the wear and tear on people's bodies, and the potential for injury that can prevent players from performing on game day. The game goes so far as to score you as a coach on your approval rating, like how much the fans approve of your performance as a coach and how you maintain your public relations in that regard, which makes it sound like a bad performance might actually get your coach fired if public perception turns against you too much. Now, that's some very cool stuff, although I have to wonder if that is something that players necessarily want. I mean, it's a cool kind of career mode and campaign mode as a game thing, but it seems to add a bunch of extra layers on top of just playing football. Now, again, I'm not an expert in the sports games or that whole sphere or how this kind of management plays into the kind of PvP aspect, because when it comes to sports games like this, I can imagine playing against other people is also a huge draw of the game, which doesn't really get boasted much in here. A lot of this is going into CPU play for how that goes. Now, part two of our review is where we highlight screenshots, and this. Let me just say this: we get 5 screenshots provided on Steam, and they really don't give us much. They are just some still frames that mostly look like flashy promo material or screen caps of, tiny hype moments that they put in between plays in games, as opposed to any kind of representation of the game itself. Um, some of them look like, they'd be an interesting wallpaper or poster or something that somebody might put on their wall of their favorite player for like little highlight snapshots of their play. But really, not, like I said, not a whole lot to go on. So we're going to skip ahead to part three here, where we look at the game itself. So, about this game, Quarterback DNA. The new Quarterback DNA feature is trained by real quarterback play calls and game situations over nearly a decade to deliver unique player specific pocket behaviors, signature throwing motions, and distinct scrambling styles that match real on field movement of star NFL quarterbacks. Honestly, that's kind of cool, keeping things, like I said earlier, lore accurate to your in game characters. Football weather, depending on how extreme the conditions are, football weather can completely disrupt your original game plan. Adapt to new challenges like limited visibility, downfield in heavy snow and fog, or wet conditions that will directly impact player movement, stamina, ball security, and more. The coach DNA, again, another side of the DNA aspect. Coaches make decisions based on their actual philosophies, backed by nearly a decade of NFL data, experience, real coaching styles like Dan Campbell's fourth down aggression, Kevin O'Connell's creative offensive approach, and more, adding new layers of strategy to every matchup. Again, this is one of those things that I think is just a very cool aspect to the game where you could have had a very basic algorithm for how the NPC responds to different play styles or different actions. And instead of having only that, having the opposing teams actually function like their real world counterparts. Again, that is a genuinely cool feature to brag about. I I said it before, I am very inexperienced with sports games, but I will give credit for what sounds like a cool feature. Explosive NFL gameplay, burst upfield like Saquon with updated player movement to reflect the explosive athleticism only the NFL can deliver. Physics based interactions now include catch tackles, stiff arms, and trucks for improved collision control. Now, that sounds like a lot of football jargon that to me sounds like sports ball. Just throwing that out there. They also boast crossplay for Steam, Epic Games, Xbox Series XS, and PS5. Face off with players between multiple consoles and systems. So that's at least a cool thing. I do appreciate that something like this will allow players to connect and play. I know some systems and some games don't have the crossplay since they have to function across different servers. But a game like this, I feel like that crossplay is probably going to keep it alive where, your multiplayer aspect is kept as alive as possible. Step into the All Madden legacy this season, experience generational playmakers, unlock rewards, and celebrate football's greatest coach. Celebrate football's greatest coach. I wonder if that's supposed to be like somebody like an actual coach, or if it's supposed to be like, hey, you be football's greatest coach or something. I don't know. Energize your team in EA Sports Madden NFL 26 with the Goal Line Pack. Log into Madden Ultimate Team in Madden NFL 26 and receive 388 overbind to add to your lineup. LaDainian Tomlinson, I, I apologize if I butcher these pronunciations, TJ Watt, and Jalen Ramsey. All right, so some other purchase pack, it sounds like. EA Sports Madden NFL 26 leverages a new AI powered machine learning system. Okay, I know I said earlier that the AI sounds like something that's supposed to be more adaptive than generative, but their phrasing here has me second guessing that. In order to convert thousands of plays from nearly a decade of real NFL data into a more explosive gameplay with new player specific traits, authentic playstyles, and adaptive counters that match on field tendencies and strategies of NFL quarterbacks and coaches. Okay, honestly, like I just said, the way they're wording this is starting to sound more generative, like the AI machine learning is what's pulling the data the as opposed to anything actually like developer created. So I'm starting to second guess this whole AI situation here. From the Skull Chant in Minnesota to the Light Show in Baltimore, immerse yourself in new presentation across the NFL, including game impacting weather, team conditions, and dynamic halftime shows with Scott Hansen. Oh, so they have halftime shows. Although I have to wonder, do gamers really care about the halftime shows? Like, or is the halftime show just something to try and engage the fans for your public relations side of the game? Because the way I could see that being the point of the halftime shows, but from a gameplay perspective, it sounds like something that would just detract from the core of what you would expect a football game to be about, and that is the football itself. Built from Sundays, real NFL data powers the realest Madden to date. Signature QBs, star NFL quarterbacks move, look, and feel more like the superstars they are. Explosive NFL gameplay, explosive NFL action at your fingertips with improved player movement, coach DNA, adaptive counters informed by real NFL coaching trends, roster management, modernized depth charts, new positional roles, and the wear and tear system add strategy and experimentation to roster management and game planning. I do like that they emphasize again here the wear and tear system, since we did see in one of the trailers where they were talking about, if you need to let your players rest to avoid injury, and having that be an actual like in-game system that you have to manage to make sure that your players are at peak performance, and rotating them out or subbing in somebody else, like subbing in your second string from your lead if you need to if you want to try and avoid somebody getting injured. It kind of reminds me of Darkest Dungeon a little bit, where you would have to sideline adventurers in order to make sure that they are well enough for future runs. Football weather, depending on how extreme conditions are. Again, this is just going into the weather, ball security, and all that. Defensive control and strategy. Control your pass coverage depth with new custom zones and perfect your pass rush strategy with new stunts and twist options at the line. That sounds cool. That sounds fancy. Um, and I'm trying to wrap my head over what all that's going to encompass here. The game includes optional in game purchases of virtual currency that can be used to acquire virtual in game items, including a random selection of virtual in game items. Hold the fuck up. Hold the fuck up. We're going to scroll up here. Okay. The game is currently on sale, and it's a pretty huge sale, but the base price of this game is $70. And they're telling me that they have purchase for in-game currency to get loot boxes for a $70 game. You know what? Moving on to part 5. We'll get to that in a minute. I am going to this is me taking everything I have to say about that and putting it on the shelf. Part 4 for the game analysis. Graphics, they look pretty impressive. I will say, at least when the graphics are actual in game graphics, they do look good. Now, I, as a player, have a preference towards more stylized cartoon or pixel graphics as opposed to the kind of hyper realism that they try to put in here. Because when they try to make these character models as real as possible, that can sometimes become a little bit of an issue when the game ages. Eventually better graphics will come out, and photorealistic, 10 years ago doesn't mean the same thing as it means now, and it's not going to mean the same thing 10 years down the line. But at least for what it is right now, the graphics do look good. They do put that money on the screen with that one. The weather effects are legitimately impressive with how they obscure and alter the game. I will give it points for that. The sound, I'm not impressed with the music, but there's probably good reason for that. I mean, it is an NFL game, so the music is going to be derived from the kind of football hype music that you expect to see watching your Sunday night football, watching your midweek games, watching the Super Bowl. Um, so I will say that for people who are fans of that sphere, they're probably going to enjoy it. But at the same time, the sounds that I'm hearing on the trailers, they don't sound like anything that I would be bobbing my head to or wanting to listen to in my downtime. Like when I'm at work and I've got, 4 or 5 hours of stretch in between like my early shift and my late shift duties, and I put on some background music. It's not going to be a playlist that I pull up. Gameplay. Now, when it comes to playing football, I will say the gameplay does feel a little confusing. Like My impression of earlier sports games might be that you have direct control over the player that currently has the ball, and then you have your button inputs to try and throw the ball in a certain direction and try and get it to another character, but then you take control of that character. I don't know if that is the case here, since the player with the ball was highlighted on the screen. I'm guessing that you have at least that much direct control over the game. But on top of that, the gameplay also emphasizes a lot, and I mean a lot of management, which brings us down to the UI and the menus part of the review. Now, this is something where in a lot of my recent reviews, I have harped on the game for its lack of showing what the in game menus look like. And Madden NFL 26 completely outdoes all those other games by showing you so much of the stat screens, particularly in the last two trailers, where there's almost 10 minutes of game footage where it's showing you the UI, it's showing you the menus to manage your playbook, your team's health, your team's roster, your skill screens, your stat screens for managing your perks, and like I said earlier, your RPG like abilities. You see all of those screens, and they are on screen for multiple seconds a piece, where you can also kind of pause them and just kind of peek around, look around it. So while I may not be entirely versed in the stats and the minutia of sports ball, I can fully appreciate that the game, or that the trailers do go out of their way to show you that much of the user interface and menus that is lacking from so many other games. But finally, okay, that I got to reach up to my imaginary shelf and take back and bring down everything I wanted to say a minute ago, because we're on the pricing. Included with EA Play. Okay, so there is an intro offer here. Oh. Oh, fuck. Okay, hold on a second. The game is currently on sale for $21. That seems like an amazing price based on what we've seen here. But we also have to judge the game by its full price, because by the time that you're seeing this review, it says that that offer ends February 10th, and Super Bowl is like, yeah, that sale doesn't last long from the time anybody's going to see this video. Guys, $70 full price for the game. Now, you can also get the EA Sports Madden NFL 26 Standard Edition bundle, which comes with also EA Sports Madden NFL 25. And that is bundled for $42. Full price bundle for $42. You get, so outside of the sale, you can pay $70 for one game or $42 for two games. Even if you don't want Madden NFL 25, it just makes more sense to buy it for the $42 on Steam. I don't know if the pricing on the other, on PlayStation or Xbox is different, but at least on Steam you can get it for $42. But I will say that is extremely stupid pricing when you have the option to get a bundle for cheaper than the full price of the base game. There's no reason to buy the base game at full price, even if you had already owned last year's game. It makes no sense. Now, if you were to currently, if you wanted just the NFL 26, you could get it for $21 as opposed to $27 for the bundle. But at the same time, if you want to try and gauge the differences and get that experience, see what was different about the last game, dropping an extra $6 for it isn't the worst thing in the world. But honestly, at that point, it kind of feels like, do you really want to give EA Games your money for this shit? EA Sports. Then this is something that I'm finding here. Included with EA Play. Join now for instant access to EA Sports, Madden NFL, and its best loved titles from EA, plus a 10% member discount and member only content. So for an extra $6 a month or $20 for a year, you can get an EA Sports premium membership. This is in addition to that $70 fucking price tag. People were upset when Nintendo started, boasting their Switch 2 games for $70. $70 plus. Now, I know for I'm a Nintendo Switch guy myself. I like my Switch. I like having the portability of that. I like my Nintendo games. Take that as what you will. And I know that you do have your Nintendo Switch online membership for what, like $20 a year at its lowest price point. Um which here similarly $20 a year, but that $20 is for just EA Play, just EA Sports stuff, as opposed to, features and online access for your entire console. I understand people not wanting to justify giving Nintendo the $20 a year for NSO online, like, annual subscription. Here it seems even less worth it. I don't need It doesn't even tell us like what all is coming here. It's just the EA Play has extra member only content on top of a 70 fucking dollar game. And then, we get back down here to the bottom of the description where it tells us this game includes optional in-game purchases of virtual currency. So, uh your Fortnite bucks, your Minecraft coins, uh, any number of mobile games microtransactions for gems or stuff like that, that can be used to acquire virtual in-game items, including a random selection of virtual in-game items. Fucking loot boxes. Now, they're not calling it loot boxes. I'm not entirely certain that the game does actually have loot boxes, but the wording of that buried all the way at the bottom of the store page. It sounds like they're selling fucking loot boxes in a $70 game with a $20 annual membership. And it is for that reason that this game is getting my personal score of a 2 out of 10. The only reason, the only fucking reason it is getting that 2 out of 10 rating instead of a 1 out of 10 is because the store page went out of its way to show us so much in-game menu so that you get a better idea of what you are going to be expecting when you get into that season campaign franchise mode with your team management and all of that. I give them points for that. But those points are not enough to compensate for that abysmal pricing structure. $70 game, $20 annual membership, and fucking in-game currency for loot boxes. Who would I recommend this to? If you are a diehard fan of sports games, if you love football, you love playing football, if you enjoy video game football, then honestly, Madden and the most recent release of Madden in order to play with other people, with your friends and all that, is probably the best way to experience the game. But I can only recommend it when it is on a massive sale, like it is right now for that $21. If you are that diehard fan and you don't have, let's say, maybe you only buy like every 5 or 10 years for the latest sports game. If you're due for that, then maybe it's worth the $21 purchase. But at full price, I cannot justify $75 for this. And I would also have to say, if you are also the kind of person that throws your middle finger up at those loot boxes or up at that annual subscription, hopefully there is enough game for $21 without the extra member exclusive features. And I could see maybe the $27 for that bundle being worth it, but at 40, I think even that $42 bundle price, the bundle at full price still sounds like too much because of the fucking loot boxes and annual membership. It the it makes it sound like they wanted mobile game pricing and continuous revenue, but they sold a $70 game for that. And honestly, that I don't often harp on game companies having a little bit of like price hike or something because development and stuff has gotten more expensive over the years. But when you have a 70, I could have excused the $70 game. But when you add the annual membership and loot boxes to that shit, I I cannot in good conscience bring that in. At that point, you're pricing it like I what was it? I've complained about other games and their price point in genres that I do particularly enjoy. Like the Artillery Ryza games when I was first looking at those and how their initial pricing on their first release had so many DLC packages that later releases instead were all encompassing for a fair $40 price tag on it as opposed to paying like 30 or $40 for a base game and then 10 to $15 for, you know, for each of 5 to 10 DLC packs or what I said some months ago about the 2 point games where you have your $20 base game, your 20 or $30 base game and then 7 to $12 DLCs, but there's like 9 DLCs. Those kinds of games, when it comes to that much price gouging out of the DLC, I have a hard time accepting it. But I have an impossible time accepting what I am seeing here, where, somebody's going to buy that $20 annual membership just so that they can get those extra bells and whistles on this. And then they're going to forget that they have that subscription until they get billed for it again 3 years later. 2 out of 10 for this shit. EA Sports, like, sincerely, fuck you. Now remember, the views expressed here are purely opinions. We all have different tastes, but I think we can almost universally agree that that kind of pricing fucking sucks. I'm gladly welcome differing opinions and respectful criticisms, but sincerely, fuck that pricing. For those of you who have purchased this, how much did you buy it for? Please, I need to know that people aren't paying $70 for this with those extra price points added on. Please. Please. Okay, you know what? I have to get off. I have to cool it. We'll be back next week for some Winter Olympics.